my book is called Fingerprints of a Hunger Strike. In many ways it was inspired by the Frisco Five hunger strikers. Familiar with the Frisco Five? In a nutshell, they were 5 individuals that went on a hunger strike in San Francisco to protest the police shootings of black and brown individuals, right? We had the killing of Mario Woods that was shown all over the place, 56 bullets. We had the killing of Alex Nieto. And what that has done is it's galvanized the movement. And I was very moved and inspired by the fact that they would go on a hunger strike and put themselves on the line, because that's what poets do for their principles. They put their bodies, they put their minds on the line. And the beautiful artwork here is done by my brother. His name is Asian, but he likes to be called Ace because he thinks he's an ace top flight artist. So anyway, I'm going to read a couple of poems from the book. My father is a big part of he figures as a big part of my work. And you know, growing up, he had 10,000 record albums, right? And none of them had a single scratch. None of them were warped, no fingerprints, no nothing. Because he knew how to take care of music, because he respected the music, particularly jazz. So in the complexity of my father and what he was, this poem is called My Father's Music. My father's music percolates and palpitates like hot coffee dreaming, a tap dancer's arrival, hitting throat with the right note, going back deep, unopposed. And my father's music is caught in a kettle whose grease endured screams and flame of gas stove decisions, where curling irons bent notes and contemplated hooks landing on the chin and announcing a verdict on a rippled canvas. And my father's music is an empty cup of my favorite things, where soup is made from pain and love is made from rain. And my father's music is made in wood when he would, then wouldn't, then would again, and wood is softer than stone, and wouldn't you know it? And my father's music, check this out, is the chamber of cool, poking into the greenness of the sun's estate of static. And my father's music is sky minus rain, divided by sun, multiplied by incense in the smoldering pyramid of branches. And my father's music is the in-time pantomime of the heaven-hell debate, whose defense rests on the 8th day. And my father's music floats and glides from head to thigh, and on that other side where up is down and down is up, sticking like flapjacks whose wings lap, lap, lap the tick-tock oil of greasy time. And my father's music skips, bumps, burps, slurps, sizzles on the sunny side of the street. I said my father's music skips, bumps, burps, slurps, sizzles on the sunny side of the street. Crackle, pop, bop, pan fried with the egg on top. My father's music. So, you know, it almost sounds like a kitchen symphony, right? You know, frying this and frying that, but you know, when you take in all those smells and those tastes, you know, you can't help but be moved from those things, right? Anyway, there were these guys who used to be in the schoolyard in San Francisco, and they used to wear jackets, what they were called derby jackets. I don't know if you remember, they were made by a company called Derby. And a lot of these guys wore black colored derby jackets, some wore brown. A lot more wore blue, so you either wore black or blue. I was acquainted with the black and the blue because sometimes I got jumped by those guys, leaving me black and blue. So anyway, this is called Derby Jacket. He got on the train. The rain tapped 1,000 dances on the windows and on the body of the train, not to mention my mind. And I noticed this guy's jacket. It rested on the guy's body just like any jacket would. And the jacket recognized me and I it. "Hey, I remember you," the jacket said. "You were the one that got jumped in that schoolyard back in, when was it, 1971? "Yeah, that was me," I replied. As I recall, I got jumped by 5 guys wearing derby jackets. One of the guys, by the way, works for the city and county of San Francisco in a bureaucratic capacity. "Why'd they jump you?" the jacket said. "Hell if I know," I replied. And the jacket remembered, and the derby jacket remembered other things, like when I got hit by a car on California Street while collecting for the San Francisco Examiner. "I thought you were dead, the way you lay on the street," said the jacket. "Sure felt like it," I said. And the train kept moving forward, and the jacket rested on the shoulders of a guy I didn't know standing across from me on the other side. And that derby jacket is my skin, my memory, my body, resting on somebody else. Advice to an aspiring writer. How do I go about making my writing better? She was a young lady who had just read her poem about pain. The pain carried on her shoulders over mountains under the gaze of many. She let go of some, but the pain, she let go of some of the pain, but much of it remains. "How do I make my writing better?" she asked. I looked at her and her face as a foggy window, and I have no answer for her. I have my poems and my pain as a flash of lightning, and I pray for it and curse it. The only thing I can tell her is to keep those flashes. Remember them. Remember the lightning. And if you're lucky, the thunder will come. And that's the God's honest truth, because I have no real advice. There was another book that came out, Cool Don't Live Here. Can I get just see that one? This came out in 2015, and really this, the process of writing this one was about, I'd say about 30 years. This was like 30 years in the making. You know, like discuss process. Folks will say, "Well, you sat down one day and you wrote the book, right?" But you know, there's a price for everything. This took 30 years of enduring things, and you know, the muse is funny. The muse will test you. Sometimes it'll test you for a day. Sometimes it'll take a 30-year test to see if you can endure, and the muse will play tricks on you. You know, like for instance, we'll send you a letter. Let's say you sent a submission for, let's say, a book, and they like your manuscript. The muse will have the editor send you a letter saying, "I loved your work, we're going to do your book." And then a week later you get another letter saying, "We sent it, we regret to say we sent it to the wrong person. We're sorry," right? And that's oftentimes the muse, just to see, you know, how you react. You gonna cry like a baby, or are you gonna keep doing what you need to do? The rewards are great, you know, for people that can endure. You know? But anyway, I think you were talking about health issues. This is a cholesterol poem. It's called "Blood In, Blood Out." We hadn't seen each other in almost 2 decades, but I recognized him as he poured cream into his coffee. He had the same puffy cheeks from junior high, but his eyes were tinged with red and his hair flecked with gray. He was a chubby boy in school who tried to lose weight by skipping breakfast and lunch and eating a big dinner. He sat 4 seats away from me, and I could see him looking my way. I covered my face as if to sneeze, but in actuality attempting to hide my face. and he called my name, and my eyes fell on his face, acting surprised. And he came over and he talked about his wife, 3 kids, and job as a fireman. A fellow firefighter just died yesterday, he said. They joined at the same time. I remember the way he traded comic books and baseball kids with the other kids, always coming out on top. These days it's blood pressure and cholesterol numbers he trades. What's your number, he asks. What's yours, I answer. We traded blood pressure readings and dietary notes, and I noted that he wasn't so big anymore. He finished his coffee and we exchanged phone numbers and email addresses. I was glad I hadn't avoided him. Take it easy, Blood, he said as he walked out the door. He never called me Blood when we were growing up. It thickens. So, with time, just through time, you sometimes get a closeness with folks that maybe you weren't close to, and you see them after years and years, and you're still here, and that means something, even if it's a cholesterol. So anyway, I want to do a piece here about single men. Okay? Now, you don't have to raise your hand if you're a single man. I want to speak to the spirits of the single men, presence of the single men that have been here, have walked through many a lonely day and many a lonely night through this door looking for a good book, looking for a potential mate, because not everybody can do that online. But anyway, this is a poem. It's called "Disarm." And by the way, it's not only for the single man. It's for women too. It's called "Disarm." There's nothing like it. The feeling of a woman taking a hold of your arm at just the right time, curling around your arm with her own in a move you didn't see coming but can't forget. So many of us are armed with so much, equipped to do damage, to get him before he gets me. But there's no feeling like when a woman takes a hold of your arm. It says more than a book. It says more than can be said. When a woman takes a hold of your arm, disarms you, and you let go of what constricts you at that moment. When a woman takes a hold of your arm and gives it a squeeze that reaches your breath, the woman you give your breath for, it takes a hold of you and takes you to another place. There's no feeling like it. No feeling at all. It is a good feeling. You're walking with somebody you kind of like, and then that move, they just grab your arm. It's like, God, what happened? And then you feel like $1 million. And then you might be walking on the street that ain't got shit on it, but it becomes Broadway, man. It's like, hey, it's... So anyway, I was going to read in honor of the Super Bowl. Oh, by the way, this reading is dedicated to Colin Kaepernick, number 7, San Francisco 49ers, currently unemployed. But this is, again, Super Book Sunday at Eastwind Books in Berkeley. So we honor Colin Kaepernick today. There was a playoff game. It was Minnesota and Philly that played a couple weeks ago. And there was a guy named Diggs. I don't know if you heard about it, but he won the game for the Vikings. He went up and he caught this ball. And it turned out that there was a guy, he was related to a guy I went to high school with named Diggs. Okay? And Diggs was a guy that everybody fucked with. He was like, there's always somebody in school that has a mark. and they're going to get messed with. And that's just the way it is. And Diggs was one of those guys. And this is a poem that's called A Guy Named Diggs. And this is after I saw their catch a couple of weeks ago. Now, Diggs was a guy whose life was sports. Diggs saw himself in every game. In his eyes, he saw himself deep in the end zone, waiting for the ball that wouldn't come. Tight spirals, wobbly passes, floaters would travel at every speed, and Diggs saw himself dropping back to pass, dodging tacklers, flinging that ball into a dream. And Diggs walked the halls of high school, weaving through the oncoming bodies, heading towards math, English, social studies, family life. He didn't have anybody blocking for him. Diggs ran around a track, and he'd go around in circles, and he'd come in last place, sometimes second to last, and all places in between. But in his mind, he was first. Diggs asked a girl out to a school dance. He got on his knee and asked if he could have the pleasure and honor of her company. It was a gesture that was the definition of class, but the classes lining the hall swelled with laughter. And Diggs had no one blocking for him except his brother. But his brother couldn't be around every second. And some 30 years later, Diggs is still following sports with all kinds of a keen eye, providing insights. And with a minute to go, I see Diggs. He beats the coverage, leaps up for the ball, comes down with it, and takes it into the end zone. It was beautiful. It was Diggs. You win, my friend. Okay, so let me get into some of this here. You know, it's funny, you do a book, and then you can't even find your own book because you gave copies of it to everybody you know, right? You know, we spent a couple days in San Francisco County Jail over at 850 Bryant. You notice that the food they give you is bad, but they do offer kind of healthful fare once in a while in the form of carrots. And this is the name of a prose piece in the book. It's called Carrots. At 850 Bryant, they give you carrots in cellophane bags. They are not carrot sticks, but grated carrots. You tear open the bag and put a few in your mouth. And also in the sack are sandwiches, cheese, peanut butter, or bologna for the grown-up crowd. And the carrots, for the most part, are ignored. As you chomp on those grated carrots, a couple of the fellows, adorned in orange like the carrots, toss you their carrot rations. And you sit looking ridiculous, popping those carrots into your mouth, getting bits of carrot between your teeth in the holding tank. And the guys in the holding tank are being held for all kinds of stuff. Some had injuries, some had been there before. But what else to do but wait, talk, or remain silent and eat your goddamn carrots? An older black man who had done time before skips the carrots and gets to the point. He says, you know, I was with my woman 20 years. It didn't work out, you know. It hurt me for a long time, for years. Like that song, She Used to Be My Girl. Man, she was a good woman. He sings a few verses of the song, an oldie that came out when many of us were fresh in high school. Before we had girls, before we had jobs, before we knew anything. A couple of others shake their heads or hum along. He shakes his head and gazes to the floor, and he says, sometimes you just gotta take a loss. And the carrots become sweeter as we chew on the man's words that linger in the holding tank, hovering overhead and into ears and squeaking by under some of our noses. And we keep eating them. And hell, if we didn't begin to see things clearer. After all, our moms used to tell us that carrots were good for our eyes. That was long before we slipped into these orange uniforms. Smiling faces. Oh man, I gotta tell you, Harvey, you know Harvey? There are people in this city, okay, that haven't smiled in years. Faces with scars that betray hearts carved into the bark of trees. Faces that carry the legacies of languages alien to the blood. Faces turned inward, looking for the elusive sanctum of smile. The black suppressed laughter of bones, kindling the memory of spirits. The Sphinx is a fallen crown, a frown. Smiles stored in jars, preserved by who knows what. There are people in this city that haven't smiled in years. How many years can you fit in a smile? Okay. Octogenarian. I met this guy. I was a security guard. He was an 80-year-old guy. He was funny, man. He always had some good stuff to say. He wears, it's called octogenarian. He wears thick sweaters with subdued colors, and his eyelids are pink and moist like a bulldog. He has all his teeth and hair and eats tuna sandwiches for lunch at a cafe owned by a Japanese woman. He still has his albums from the old days and has just bought a new record player. He likes standards and can play the harmonica on request. When he gets on the bus, he nods in the presence of women and says, "Ladies." If they ignore him, he smiles and says, "Go on Hollywood on me, huh?" His father used to have a horse in the old days when the area was natural and rustic, before the developers. Now he takes the bus and rides a bike, but he fell off the bike, injuring his elbow. He says he's an octogenarian, and I ask him what that means, and he tells me that it means he's 80 years old. We sit on the bus together, and he shows me his scabbed elbow. He says he put rubbing alcohol on it when the wound was fresh. And I told him that it reminded me of the old cowboy movies when men would pour whiskey over their gunshot wounds before dying. A waste of good whiskey, he said. Thank you very, very much for coming out. And again, thank you to Harvey and Eastwind. These two books really speak to the heart of the city from the eyes of both a yak, a carabao, and from a born and raised San Franciscan. It's published by Thuriel's Spear Press. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Hilton Obenzinger. He just came out with a book of poems that are excellent as well. It's called Treyf Passach, Treyfpesach, and it means blasphemous Passover, and it's some very powerful work. Again, thank you very much. Thank you. These two books are really a letter to the city, because I've been there I've been there all my life, right? I'm born and raised there. So what my poems do and the prose that I do is try to just articulate what a lot of people aren't articulating, and to do it in a way where I don't come across like I'm preaching. I think for writers, I think the most important thing that a writer can have is grace. And grace is, I guess, defined in a lot of ways, but grace is just essentially like how well you walk through the fire, really. And I try to do it with grace, because there's so many moments, like in the book, there's so many moments that happen that people overlook that are graceful moments and beautiful moments that we have to try to cherish in some way. Yeah, but there were reviews actually of the book. They've been pretty good reviews, actually. I haven't gotten, I don't think, I got a review on this in 48 Hills online, 48 Hills online. Tim Redman gave it a good review. We want to have more reviews of this because I'm proud of both of these books. I think both of these books are really really wonderful. It was in front of the Mission Police Department where they were doing the hunger strike, and after a while you could see it was taking a toll. You know, they hadn't eaten in a while, and you could see in their eyes that they were going into a different emotional, spiritual space. You know, I don't know. I was just very moved. You know that they would put themselves, their bodies on the line like that. And I think they were really articulating what a lot of native-born or born and raised San Francisco people that are overlooked and just discarded. You know, it was addressing the police shootings, but it was also it was honoring our presence, that we have a history in that city, that you know that those murals and those sounds and those streets and those smells is in our blood, and wherever we go, we can't get rid of Frisco. Man. If you're born there, that's it, man. You can try to say, hey, I moved, I'm not there anymore. But I went to the Philippines a few months ago, thinking about Frisco, writing about Frisco from Manila, you know, because so much has been taken away from us, right? Our stories, our homes, our elders, you know, the life that we have there, and you know, I try to just capture that in, you know, I try to capture it in poetry and short stories, you know, that hopefully will move somebody. I mean, even the stuff about being in the, you know, being in the jail for a few days, you know, it's like, you know, seeing a guy, you know, sleeping while standing up. I'd never seen that before. A guy sleeping while standing up and snoring, you know, and the sounds that, you know, that made, you know, being in there, and just the sounds, people sleeping and trying to sleep, and it's so cold in that place, you can't really rest, and the sounds that come out, it's like, what are those sounds trying to articulate? You know, how much unrest people have not been allowed to get, you know, true sleep. And so, you know, I try to, you know, articulate. But so many of our people are born and raised in Frisco. I mean, they're in jail, right? A lot of them are sitting in jail, you know, or homeless, or you know, whatever. You know.
What was the outcome of that hunger strike?
Let's see, the outcome. I think it was an 18-day hunger strike, and what happened was it brought about the firing or the resignation of the chief of police. That's what, yeah. In fact, on day 18, it's day 18, yet it's day 1 in the purity of our struggle. It will be said there is no day, it was 17 days, right? It will be said that there is no day 18, but yet day 18 is day 1. 17 days have passed before our eyes, and what remains is the purity of our struggle. The Frisco Five's journey Frisco Five's journey covered 17 seasons, giving birth to a new season and a new season again and again. So yeah, so it brought about the resignation.